On the agenda for tonight's live analysis, we're going back to 1982. We're going to be taking a look at Brook Benton, and he's going to be performing Rainy Night in Georgia. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to this live analysis. Thank you guys for joining me in the live chat room tonight. So we're going to be getting into this performance. I will be jumping into it about halfway through. So as always, there's a link in the description below that you guys can click on if you want to watch the performance the whole way through without me interrupting it. But without further ado, let's get Brook up on screen with the full band and see how he gets on.
Hovering by my suitcase, trying to find a warm place to spend the night. Heavy rains are falling, seems I hear your voice calling, it's alright. A rainy night in Georgia, a rainy night in Georgia. Lord, I believe it's raining all over the world. I feel like it's raining all over the world. Neon signs are flashing, taxi cabs and buses passing through the night. Distant moaning of a train seems to play a sad refrain to the night. A rainy night in Georgia, such a rainy night in Georgia. Lord, I believe it's raining all over the world. It's raining all over the world. How many times I've wondered, it still comes out the same. 'Cause no matter how you look at it or think of it, it's life, and we all must play the game. Play the game.
So I'm just going to jump in here and talk about a distinctive vocal. That is definitely the case here. And as we're going to point out in this analysis, the range that Brook covers in this performance, but just the range that he had full stop, was so impressive because range works both ways. So sometimes on the channel when I've been looking at a vocalist who's been hitting high C's and your C5s and maybe D5s and E5s in the male tenor range and then counter tenor range, it also goes the other way of going low down, and that's certainly what we get here, to the point where I believe we have an E flat 2, and that's down in the bass range when we're talking about male vocals. And I will get something up on screen so you guys can see exactly the range that's being covered by Brook, and that is not even bringing into consideration yet the tone, the quality of the tone, and the vocal cord connection that he gets at the bottom end of his range. Because it's something that sometimes with a lot of singers, the lower they get, the more airy the sound becomes, because they're really trying to reach down low, but their vocal cords don't want to do it. Whereas with Brook, the lower he gets, just the more resonant it becomes, and you get such a thick sound in that lower range. But then also when he's leaning into his voice a little bit more, he'll be in his mid-range and he'll just have a great vocal cord connection there. By the way, he also goes up to a G4, which is up there in the male tenor range. So I'm going to get a graphic up on screen so that you guys can see what I'm talking about, the big piano that we've had in previous live analysis videos, because with this, you can see, and I've got my little arrow, hopefully that you'll be able to see on the screen, the ranges that we're going through here. I mentioned about the E2, and we're actually an E flat too, so it's just this black key here, if you can see it. And we've got our ranges here. These are male ranges, obviously, for the video that we're looking at. So we've got the bass range. This is where Brook is singing that lowest note. He's spending a lot of his time in this bass range, but then as we progress into the verse and getting closer towards the chorus, he then transitions into the baritone range. And like I said, he's going all the way up to the G4. And you can see the A4 here. I've tried to get it roughly over the A, but the G is going to be just the white key beneath the A. And as you can see, we've got a flat here and a sharp. That's what these black keys are. If you don't know, they are flats and sharps. And the G4 is just there. So when we go back and take a look at all of these notes that go all the way down to the E flat 2, it's an incredible range, because it means that he's covering an E flat in 3 separate octaves. And the great thing about this is that you don't even take this in. It's not one of those songs where you think, wow, he's covering so much range, and it is evident that he's doing that. The greatest singers in the world can cover such a wide range, and you don't notice they're doing it because they've got tonal consistency and they never look like they're straining. And that goes for lower down in the range as well. Like I said, sometimes it can sound a bit weird, but here Brook is all over it from that pitch perspective and just having the control. Another thing that he does is deliver this vocal in such a way that he sometimes goes to that talking place where he's so light with the delivery, but he always has a little bit of vibrato and throws it in, even if the singing style is more in a talking style and you really connect with him because of the way that he delivers it. You get the vibrato in that talking way of delivery, so it means that it's going to link up and make everything consistent so that he's still singing even though he's just delivering it with that talking vocal, and then he'll lean into it a little bit more, get more into chest voice, ascend as we saw with the piano on screen there, and by the end of the song he will be hitting that G4 just as a really clean head voice note. And this is the other thing, that he's not straining when he's getting up to the top of that range. It just seems so effortless and so easy. But what we will be doing is getting the guitar out as well, because there's a lot of really subtle guitar being thrown in here that is quite high in the mix, which is great. If you play guitar, you can listen out for it and hear the little lines that are thrown in there, the fills. We will have a little look at that, but also this song from a compositional perspective, the chords, the progression, the journey of the song, just the fact that we've got a really cool slide lead bit of playing. There are 2 guitars here, by the way, so it means that one, you can hear a little bit more of the rhythm work and striking those strings, muted strings. The other guitar is going to be giving you the major 7th chords, the guitar fills, the little sliding lead up and down, and really cool major 7th sound to the chords that are being played here. But what we'll do is we will get into the rest of the performance and we'll get the guitar out after this in order just to go through the chords, but also I'll show you the notes that are being covered vocally here from Brook. But it is such a cool performance and delivered in such a cool way as well. But let's get back into it.
I find me a place in a boxcar, so I take my guitar to pass some time. Late at night, when it's hard to rest, I hold your picture to my chest. Then I feel fine. I feel fine then. but it's a rainy night in Georgia. Baby, it's a rainy night in Georgia. Lord, I believe it's raining all over the world. Raining, 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 raining all over the world. Raining, 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 raining all over the world. Yes, raining over here, raining over there, raining over here, raining over there, raining all over the world. Raining, 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 raining,
And there we have it. And right at the end there, we got to hear that high G4. Not that you're really going to notice it too much because he sings it so well. But let me just move my chair back to get the guitar out. Give me a little bit of space and try and not knock anything over. So, by the way, that G4 that I just mentioned, I'm detuned. So this is why things will sound a little bit different. Like there, I went to the straight to the G, but of course on my guitar it's a G flat. So it means that if you are wanting to play along with this, it's going to be better if you detune your strings to E flat, because it will just give you access to the chords in the most natural way possible. When I'm demonstrating as well, it's good to be able to give you the lowest note that Brook is singing in this song, because it gives you a real appreciation of the amount of range that's being covered here by Brook. So actually this note up here that I played, that actually that is going to be the G, the G4, and this is when he goes raining, raining, rain. So it's up there, and when I sing it going raining, it sounds quite high, because it is. And this is the great thing about Brook's vocal. He's just singing these notes in such a relaxed way, but considering how low he's gone with his voice, it's amazing to have such ease with the range of notes that he has. So really impressive stuff, considering the amount of body that he gets in his sound as well. So let me get everything off the screen so you guys can see what's going on here. Like I said, detuned here to E flat. So it means all of your strings, you want to take it down just half a step or just one fret if you're looking at it in that way. But if you have got your guitars out, what I'm going to do is refer to everything as if it's in standard tuning, so that the shapes, the positions, you know where to go to, rather than saying the edited positions or the edited chords that they are because of the detuning. So like I mentioned when I went to the G, that is going to be equivalent of the 3rd fret. I'm going to kind of transpose it for you and not call out the chords as they are changed. Hopefully that makes sense. If you play guitar, you know what I'm talking about. But the great thing about where we start here, we've got this major 7th sound in our chords, which is going to take it to a more jazzy sounding place. And we've got this really relaxed groove here. And this is where one guitar is playing this rhythm and the other guitar is just playing this, literally going, just giving you a percussive strike on those strings, just muting them in order to keep the rhythm going a little bit. But obviously we won't focus on that because that's very easy. Just rest your hand on your strings very lightly and hit them and you'll get that sound. But the chords are slightly more difficult, so we'll cover those. So we've got this, and that's going to be in the intro, which we have this like that. So just taking that intro riff, you're just squashing down the high E string and B string, sliding up, sliding down again. And that is just from 4 to 2. And here, this is where the detuning is really going to help you out, because it means that you can play your D major 7th at the bottom of the guitar here and have your open D string like that, rather than having to always go to your position higher up the fretboard. So once you've got that, it's pretty much going to be based around your major 7th sound. You can go down in the verses to your A. You can even let that A string ring out. We're going to that. If you want to combine those percussive strikes on the string with the rhythm, then you can do. Just make sure that you do that after your upstroke. So we've got this like that. So that kind of vibe, and pretty much we're going to be getting into what will be our D flat minor 7th in standard tuning, because I'm not going to tell you the other chords. I almost confused myself there, but we'll keep it simple, because then we're going to the A flat minor. And we've got some really cool stuff going on here. Listen out for the guitar in the background, because we've got this. We've got some really nice fills going on, and also that kind of thing. So we've got this. Down to a G flat minor. A, and then if you want to, you can get into your E major 7th shape here, rather than having to jump all the way up to the top here, because that's going to be a bit of a strain and a stress, especially coming off the back of those last 2 chords, because we had our A here, and I'm just barring this with my first finger, as you can see, and you can then literally put on the little finger, which means that if you bar your highest 3 strings, or the 1st, 2nd and 3rd string, it means you're going to get your E major 7th shape there, and then you can go down to your D major 7th just by barring that 1st finger. And this is the other thing, that if you are playing that, it'd be quite nice to put that chord in at the end of that little run, because there's 2 guitars going on here. It means that one of the guitars is going to be playing that rhythm really subtly, and the other guitar is going to just be playing that lead. And I think that's pretty much all the chords that you're going to need. We do have a little bridge in there as well, and pretty much I think the bridge is going to be our A flat minor, G flat minor, and that's it. We just stick a B at the end of that progression for the bridge. So once you've played that, we're back into the major 7th shapes. No. But that's it, and pretty much that's going to be the rhythm that you hear throughout this whole performance. Is really subtle, low in the mix on that guitar, and certainly some of the fills that are being played, they do pop out, and that's just because we've got a full band here. The guitar is playing minimal parts of the rhythm because we've got so many other instruments involved, but it's great to hear those little lines in this kind of thing. And there's even a little hammered on minor 7th shape there as well, which is really cool to listen to. So there's plenty of stuff going on here from a guitar perspective, but like I said, detune half a step and then you'll be good to go. And if you are playing this in standard tuning, then as long as you keep all of the intervals the same, it's going to be fine, especially if you're playing your bar chord shapes. You know, all these positions, into the A, into the major 7th, all going to be the same, just it's going to be semitone higher. So quite interesting stuff from a guitar perspective. Not that I was expecting that looking at Brook, because of his voice and the ability that he has as well. And this is, by the way, a performance from 1982. So it meant that I think this was released around about 1970, if not actually 1970. And Brook was one of those performers that really became popular in the late 50s, maybe 1959 into the 60s. And it's interesting in that he was actually making quite good money writing songs for other artists, and Nat King Cole was one of those artists in question. And it's something that he got into the singing really by default, because he was writing songs and there were so many of his songs that were doing well and he was making a fair amount of money, but he had this voice which is just a crazy good voice with the tone. And it was Clyde Otis, who was one of his friends and actually writing partner, who then took over as an A&R executive at Mercury Records. And he was one of the first ever black A&R executives that there were. But they were good friends, they wrote together. But because Clyde now had this new position, they'd written actually a couple of songs together that they were giving to Nat King Cole. But this is the thing, that because of the voice that Brook had, Clyde said to Brook, look, I'm at Mercury Records, so sign to the label and you should record these two tracks that were written. And it just meant that those two tracks then had to be taken away from Nat King Cole, because they had it all organised that Nat was going to get in the studio and get them down. So It's Just a Matter of Time was the first song that they recorded, then Endlessly, and It's Just a Matter of Time was a massive hit. It got to number 3 in the charts, sold over 1 million copies, and this is Brook that recorded it. So it was certainly a good idea from Clyde to sign him to the label. And those two songs, Endlessly got to number 12 in the charts. Those first two songs were just monster hits, and then he just had a roll of hits from then on. And we're talking about 1959 was that breakthrough period into the early 60s. So just massively successful throughout that time. And then he had another huge hit with Rainy Night in Georgia, which was released, I think, 1970. So having this video here, 1982, it's 12 years after the song was released, but he still has absolutely everything on point, and the voice is so unique and so strong, even so long after the fact that this was released in 1970. So really impressive stuff here from not only a vocal perspective, but the whole band. The way that it's performed dynamically is spot on and just leaves so much space. That is the key to these kind of performances, where you have a vocal that takes center stage. You don't want anything to tread on the toes of that vocal. You want that vocal to be so up front, and it's just such a pro setup where the dynamics are spot on, to the point where Brook can just talk and deliver the vocal in that sense with that dynamic appreciation and dynamic quality, and not have to battle with any instruments. And this is something that you will see a lot of bands, and maybe less experienced bands, probably less experienced bands, that are just not playing dynamically enough for the singer. So the singer's having to compete. You want to leave spaces, and that's exactly what we get here. So much space, but because of Brook's voice and his vocal tone being so full of body, it means that he fills in so much frequency. He's got one of those voices that isn't thin. It is thick, which means it's going to just fill in so much of that EQ. You're going to have all of that mid-range and the bass range that we spoke about earlier when I showed you the piano. He's covering so much range in his voice. That means he's covering so much frequency, because when you look at an EQ chart, if you're into production, you'll know what I'm talking about, but EQ curves, and you'll see the bass range, the mid-range, and then the upper range and the treble, if you want to call it that as well. those, or that whole frequency is just notes. So those notes will fill up frequency. When you've got a singer who covers a lot of range, they're filling in a lot of frequency, and especially when you're talking about a guy like Brook, like I mentioned, 3 octaves. So it means that the band don't have to do as much because the guy at the front of the stage is covering so much with his voice. And when you've got this thick vocal tone, it means that it is just having a luxury of being able to relax with your guitar, and in the background when you are playing this kind of you can really relax into it and play with a real close dynamic of being low down volume wise, but just letting the guy use his voice at the front of the stage and just pull everybody into the performance, because that really is the focal point. But really interesting to look at here, and thank you guys for giving me so many suggestions, requests last night to have a look at. This just was one of those that has been randomly chosen, so I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and it's great to have a look at a vocalist as well, put that in the center of the stage, because I know that these live analysis videos have been guitar based, but the good thing is that we have been able to get the guitar out with this one as well, because we have such great dynamic playing, control, a few fills. It's all about just dotting in the playing as and when it's required and not overplaying. But a really interesting video to look at because we get to look at both of those points. But thank you guys so much for joining me tonight on this live analysis, and these happen on a Wednesday night, 12 midnight Greenwich Mean Time, and I try to keep them under half an hour so they don't go on for too long, but also in the same vein as the normal analysis videos. So thank you everybody for joining me tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this one. I'll be doing the same thing again next week. But have a great day or night or morning wherever you are, depending on what time it is where you are. But I'll see you guys at the next analysis video on Friday, live stream on Saturday, analysis video Sunday, live stream on Tuesday, and then we'll be back to Wednesday for another live analysis. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!